growing. And today I want to reflect upon yet another psalm and talk about God's presence. I want to share about God's presence. And I'm reading from Psalm 114. And in this psalm, the psalmist is reflecting upon the events that God did in their lives when God took the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt and led them into Canaan, the land that flowed with milk and honey. And it is a description of those events that happened, the Exodus events that we've read, in a beautiful way. It's captured in a poetic way, and it's such a lovely psalm. So turn with me to Psalm 114, and I'll read from verse 1 to 8, and it reads, "When Israel came out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of foreign tongue, Judah became God's sanctuary, Israel his domination. The sea looked and fled, and Jordan turned back. The mountains skipped like rams to the hills like lambs. Why was it, O sea, that you fled, O Jordan, that you turned back? You mountains, that you skipped like rams, you hills like lambs. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of God, at the presence of the God of Jacob, who turned the rock into pool, the hard rock into springs of water." This is the story captured in a poetic way, the story of how God led the children of Israel out of Egypt. You remember when they got to the Red Sea, how the Lord split the Red Sea and they crossed, how the Lord watched over them as they walked in the desert during the night, that pillar of fire, and during the day, that cloud that was just hovering upon them. And when they got to the river Jordan, how God again split the river Jordan and they crossed, how God continuously came through for them. And this is just the reflection that the psalmist is talking about. But prior to this, I just want to highlight what happened to the mind. Imagine what happened to the minds of the Egyptians. At one time, they were the ones that were in charge. They were the ones that were in control. But when God came through, something should have happened in their mind. And I want to imagine that the events that happened were disastrous, because they were asking themselves, what is it that has hit us? We so believed in our gods, but our gods did not come through for us. And they resisted the call of God. Remember when God sent Moses and said, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go." And Pharaoh thought he was in control. And this is such a lesson for all of us, that we can resist God's divine will, but it's at our cost. When you resist the will of God, that's a good and a perfect recipe for ruin. That's a perfect recipe for a disastrous ending. And we see God giving the Egyptians the option to retreat, the option to stop fighting what God was intending to do. And when they got to that sea, they thought, we are still in control. But let's just imagine you are pursuing someone and they get to a river, not even a sea, let's talk of a river. And they get to a river and you think you are still in charge. And you see this river splitting in two. And that person begins to walk in between. Who of us will have the guts to chase that person? I don't think I can even want to chase, because I'm not so sure who opened this thing. And at what stage can the person close it? And these guys, because they were fighting against nature, they were fighting against the will of God, they foolishly decided to pursue the Egyptians, to pursue the Jews, in fact. And in the middle of it, you're then saying, I'm catching up. Right in the middle of it, it's begun to close. Friends, just as a principle and just as a lesson of life, do not fight with God. Do not resist the will of God. do not go against the precepts of God. You know, like even now, you look at the world, how the world is reversing everything that God has decreed. And you look at it and say, disaster is coming. The end is guaranteed. And this is even the story that we continuously have been talking about, even in our context in Zimbabwe. You see people doing that which is against God. You do that at your own cost. So the Egyptians did that. But what was it to the mind of the Hebrews, to the mind of the Jews? I think they saw redemption. As God delivered them from bondage, He is saving them for this purpose, that they will be able to serve Him freely. He is saving them so that they have a relationship with God. God has liberated us so that He can relate with us. God has liberated us so that we can have a relationship with Him, so that we can call Him Father, as He has already said to us, whoever believes in me has every right to be called a child of what? A child of God. So we are freed for this relationship. But in this psalm, you begin to appreciate, if you read even in verse 3, you begin to appreciate how boundaries are removed. It actually pictures it and says, oh Jordan, you turned away. You know, water is very threatening, at least to me. I don't know about you. But if you've been to a sea or an ocean, when you see those waves coming, there are guys that love playing with them. You know, I have seen one who seated at the back, a picture playing into those waves, but they can be threatening. And the more violent, water is very violent. In fact, I don't need to go to the sea or the ocean now. If you are in any life-threatening situation, even in our lives, we begin to see that we serve a God who removes boundaries that were life-threatening. And our faith will lead us into places. One person talking about how the message of God penetrates, he actually said, the message of God, it reduces all battles that have been set by mankind. Anywhere you go, and every man is reduced to a level in which we see the need for God. No matter what your class is, no matter what your status in life is, you get to a place where God reduces you to a place where you see the need for Him. And there's so many people that when we look at, they think they've made it in life. They have everything that they think they have. But the moment we realize they don't have a relationship with difficulties in our lives, we serve a God who is with us. Then, having said all these things, how then do we see the presence of God in this psalm? How then do we get takeaways from this psalm? The first thing that we see even from verse 1 is God is for us. God is for us. When Israel came out of Egypt, the house of Jacob, from a people of a foreign tongue, Judah became God's sanctuary, Israel his dominion. Friends, God is for us. And if you read Romans chapter 8, from verse 31, it says, if God is for us, who can be against us? Whatever we go through in life, it should be comforting. It should be very encouraging just to know that the Creator is on my side. Just to know that God is for me. Allow you to convince yourself that there's no one who's for you. It is so easy to convince yourself that no one believes me. It is so easy to start to think that my world is crashed. There's no one who can believe my story. There's no one who is interested in my story. There's no one who cares. But this psalm should encourage you to realize that, hang on, God is for us. Not only is God for us, God is with us. You know, He separated Israel from Egypt. But He did not end by separating Israel from Egypt. He separated Israel unto Himself. It was a purpose to say, I'm separating, I'm taking you out of bondage, And I'm not ending there. I want you to be mine. And you've made every provision for the children of Israel to enjoy the benefits of God. And my friends, God is for us and is with us. And He has set everything right for us. But the condition is our relationship with you. We can only enjoy the benefits of what God has done and is continually doing if we have a relationship with Him. And this is not a relationship that we can act out. You know, it's very easy to behave right outside, but deep down, you know, God, the relationship I'm talking about is that which is that inside-out relationship, not the outside-in. I'm talking about the inside, the relationship that is anchored on the knowledge that the God I'm serving says in Psalm 139, I have created you. I know you. Before a word is on your mouth, I already know it. When you sit down, I know it. When you stand up, every step of the way, it is that relationship that has that awareness that can be able to enjoy this fact that I'm saying, God is with us. And you know what? This psalmist is reflecting. I'm so sure if we take time to reflect, there's so many, just like the song that we sang, there are so many things that we can actually sit down and be grateful to God about. You know, you don't need me to remind you that we're in if you say Zimbabwe is in a crisis, that's a wrong word. You don't need to remind, I don't need me to remind me that we are facing challenges. Okay, that's the right way. We are facing challenges. But amidst all these challenges, amidst all this crisis, we can sit down and reflect and begin to be grateful and begin to point out so many things that God has come through for me on this issue, on this issue, on this issue, on this issue, on this issue. God has continued to be faithful amidst the chaos that is outside. God is with us. Not only is God with us, God is before us. God is before us. And you see the key thought from this is that nature trembles at the presence of God. We serve a God that when He appears, nature listens to Him. And if you had thought that nature only listened to God in the Old Testament, I want to quickly take you to Mark chapter 4, from verse 35, where Jesus' disciples are confronted with the storm. And it says Jesus was actually sleeping as these guys were confronted with the storm. And He gets up, and other versions actually says, He rebuked the storm and He said to the storm, peace, be still. And if I was to use the word in my vernacular, actually it comes out so beautifully. The word that it says there, you know, if you are misbehaving, the context in which it is said, my mother would say, you know, when there are visitors and there's kids, you start to, you should just behave in an unusual way. You know, either my mother would look at you and tell you, and you would hear the eyes. You would hear the eyes telling you, these guys are going to go, and when they go, you and me have got issues too. You could hear that loud and clear. But there was one word which you might liken it to say, you know, I'm looking for an English word to say. But in short, they would look at you and simply say, Zikama. And that would say volumes. Just that one word will put you in your right place. And you will know, oh my word, what have I done? And this for me is the picture that Christ would stand up and say to the storm, and say to nature, peace, be still. Imagine if he can command nature and nature listens. There's nothing too big for him in your life. There's nothing that complicated in your life that he can't rebuke. There's nothing complicated in our lives. What can you imagine if the sea, that powerful wave coming as if it's going to consume them, and it just says, peace, be still, and it dies down. What can you think of in your life that can be too big for this God before? So my friend, we've got to take courage in God's presence. We've got to have this awareness that He is for me, He is with us, and He goes before us. Every step of the way, God is watching. I'll take you back to all those that have had children in their lives. You know, when your kids started to learn to walk, every step of the way you would watch them. And you know, when I once heard that the joy is unexplainable when you see, you love describing what you say. I've been there on your first. I read a letter to a mother of a child. I was there on the first day when you were smiling. I was there the first day you took your first step. But it's amazing when you just watch this child every step of the way. And you say, go on, my boy, go on, you are safe. Don't worry. And you can almost see every step, say, this child will take a step here, and the next step is there, and the next step is there, and the next step is there. If you see harm along the way, you go before the child and clear the what? The way. God goes before us to clear the way. Oh, how I wish I would say to you today, friends, God is clearing the way for the better sinner. God goes before us. Let us enjoy